7 o'clock. Okay, got it. It is 7 o'clock and we will start the February or the March 10th Planning Commission meeting. And first thing we'll do is take roll. We'll need 4 for a quorum. So let's see who's here. Commissioner Bovers.
Present.
Commissioner Greenberg. Commissioner Moe.
Present.
Commissioner Torgerson. You got to unmute, honey.
Yep, I realize that.
All right,
I'm
good
here.
job. Good job. And Commissioner Blanco, that is 4 of us. So, Commissioner Tao. Did I miss Commissioner Tao? No. Perhaps they'll join us in a moment. We'll see. Anybody else? Jamie trying to get in? Do you see? Okay. All right. We can go ahead with that. So for the record, we do have a quorum. Number 2 on our agenda tonight is the opportunity for public comment on non-agenda items, 3 minutes per person. Do we have any comments?
We have no one from the public in attendance.
Thank you. So we'll close, we opened the public hearing at 7:01 and we'll close the public hearing at 7:02. There we go. Now, number 3, we have the approval of February 10th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Hearing none, I'll need a motion to approve the minutes in a second.
Am I muted? No, this is
You're
Commissioner
good.
Mo. Sorry. I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the Planning Commission February 10th, 2022 meeting.
Do I hear a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Bovers. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Our minutes for this February 2nd, February 10th, 2022 meeting minutes have been approved. Number 4. The top, oh, well, yeah, here we go. Number 4, the approval to remove Commissioner Blanco from the chair position and placing Commissioner Blanco as vice chair for the remainder of the current 2-year term with 1 year remaining, and approve to remove Commissioner Torgerson from the vice chair position and placing Commissioner Torgerson as a chair for the remainder of the current 2-year term with 1 year remaining. We have decided to try this, and one of the things that Susan and I talked about a little bit was having more people do the chair position for a little short. When you get a chair and a co-chair, you know, after a year, maybe you flip it around a little bit so that everybody gets a chance to sit in this seat, to be that chair, and to support. And so we're going to try it and see how it works. Do you have any comments or anything that anybody wants to say about that? No, James. James says no. Olivia? No.
No, if you guys talked about it and this works for your lives, that's great. I'm on board. I think you're both wonderful people. So
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank
Thanks.
you. So do we need a motion for that to make that happen, Rebecca?
Yes, please have a motion in a second.
Okay.
Vote on it.
Okay, we'll need a motion on that. I don't know that if I can make it, but
You absolutely can.
okay, I'll make a motion that we approve Commissioner Blanco stepping down as chair and moving into the vice chair position, and Commissioner Torgerson taking over as chair and moving from vice chair to the chair position of the North Bend Planning Commission. Anyone want to second that one?
yeah, I'll second it. Commissioner Mo.
Commissioner will second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It passes unanimously. And with that, I will hand over the torch to, or the chair position to Commissioner Torgerson. Thank you all.
Thank you, and thank you for being the chair all these past months, Commissioner Blanco.
Thank you. My
All
pleasure.
right, so the next item on the agenda is we're going to have a public hearing regarding North Bend Municipal Code Chapter 18 and the site plans, parking, and design standards. First, we'll have an introduction by staff, public hearing, then the planning commission will talk about it, and then we'll make a recommendation after that. So Jamie, would you like to take it
I
home?
do see that somebody joined via phone. So is that a commissioner or a public? Oh, they might have just muted.
You went back to mute.
Okay,
I
well,
believe it's Commissioner Greenberg. He texted me, he was having technical trouble, so I told him to go ahead and call in.
okay, we
So-
can find out later.
Yes. Oh, that he came in, if it is him, right before this item in the minutes, once he's able to chime in. So as we, well, as I say, as we don't have public, because I don't believe we do, I was going to check the number. Yeah, that's his number. That is his number. I'm just going to kind of go over the differences from what our discussion was from the introduction. And if you have any questions, I can go back over each section, but really the main I'll do a brief overview. Is the first proposed change is site plans to section 18.14, which is basically dealing with outdoor expansion of uses in which they would be required to have a site plan approval moving forward. The next one, which has the biggest change from the previous introduction, is chapter 18.34 off-street parking. We reworded it as you guys requested. And then you guys also had requested us to come up with some sort of minimum. So we put together an additional exemption at 3 spaces. We didn't have much direction from the last meeting on where you want that minimum to be. So we thought maybe 10 was too many and maybe 5 still was. So total of 3 spaces, at 10%, because this was dealing with the 10%. They're only required to add parking if the use needs more than 10% additional spaces. But if it's 1 space there or 2 spaces there, 10% is always going to be more, so we put it at 3. If the new use needs 3 spaces, then we don't worry about it at all, no matter whether there's 0 parking, 1 parking, 2 or 3, they wouldn't have to do anything. If they had needed 4, then it'd go to that 10% trigger. And then the last one is the design standards, which changes it from design standards for single family homes from only over 2 units to all new single family homes. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Does anybody have any thoughts?
If there's no technical questions, we can open the public hearing and then we can go into deliberation if there's more of a discussion than questions.
Okay. Well, at this point, it is 7:08. Let's go ahead and open the public hearing.
Again, we have no members of the public in attendance.
Seeing the chat box is completely empty, then we'll close it at 7:08. And now would be a time for the commissioners to discuss, deliberate. If you have any questions, let's go ahead and ask them.
Commissioner Balago here. This seems pretty straightforward, and adding the parking, as Rebecca explained it to us, makes sense. It seems that it's the right thing to do. I don't have any questions with this. I think it's time to make the change and fix the code a little bit to what's happening in our area.
Okay, sounds good. How about you, Olivia, James?
I don't have any technical questions. We kind of talked about it last time and it makes sense. I like the way it's written. It seems very clear and easy to understand.
Fabulous. James?
Yeah, so I like the parking one and I like the design centers. I'm still hung up on the site plan one. Strictly because, like we said before, it just feels like this. I think I'm missing something here. So if I've been racking my brain since the last meeting of what else you could do outside of parking, storage, and seating. And the only thing I can think of is like a landscaping or something like that. But as we talked about before, but I guess if it inherently feels like overreach here to say that any changes to an outside use requires a site plan. You talked about the last one, that it is a small thing, but it is a thing. And to me, that's overreach to say if you do anything to the outside of your lot that you own, that you either bought or built, and the city's already had their hands in, why does the site plan? It feels like it's the city stretching into something that they don't need to be part of. When it comes to parking, seating, and storage, I get that, because those are specific items that do change the use of that for the public, right? Especially when you talk about parking. But I'm still hung up on the but not limited to line.
I don't know if it helps is that it's a change in use. So you can go and landscape your landscape area. That's not a changing the use. Even if you're adding trees or maintaining, that's not a change in use. But that's, that's a perfect example of what you said. If you reduce the landscaping, you might be no longer in compliance with the municipal code. So this would let us review it to say, no, you can't reduce the landscaping for whatever decision you're putting it in there. Maybe you want to put a trail and you want to pave it. We may not have an issue, but it also could be in a buffer area or in a, one of the transition landscape areas. So it's more of an idea. Yes, we've had our hands on it, but then you're requesting to make a change to it. And so we want to make sure that your change is in compliance with the code. I don't expect most things to take very long for us to review. It's administrative. It's not something that's a big deal, but it could be a big deal depending on what they're doing.
And maybe this is the part where I'm missing. Is this something that city employees driving by and sees you doing something and they can say, oh, wait, no, you need a site plan now? Or is this that the commercial use has come to the city to get approval for a change, and you guys in the past weren't able to require a site plan for that change? You see what I'm getting at? If this is something, if this is leaving it open to somebody walking by and reporting them.
Yes, it's both. I mean, obviously the reason that you ask them to do it when they're doing it without permission is because it's a requirement and they're not doing it. And the issue, actually, one of the big things that came up is part of this, and where I kind of first came up with the issue when I first started, was we have a non-conforming use code that allows you to expand up to 20%, but we have no way to track that if it's an outdoor use. How do we track that they expanded their tow yard 20%? How do we track that they got their expansion and they can't do it again just because the staff they're applying to a different staff member, or it was 10, 20 years ago kind of scenario? So it is it's a little bit of both, in the fact that having a formal approval gives them relief and becomes non-conforming if we change our code, but also gives us a chance to make sure it meets the code. And we do have a hand up if you.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Greenberg, maybe.
I see that.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question,
hear me?
James, before we go on to the next person?
I've got more, but I wouldn't mind hearing what Scott's opinion is here first.
Okay, Scott, let's hear from you.
Yeah. Can you hear me, first of all?
Yes.
Okay, good. I've never done Zoom this way before, so I had to figure out how to mute and unmute and do all that stuff. So I was just gonna, at least say I was here and that I support the proposal as written.
Thank you. Okay, James.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I guess I'm coming around to the idea, but I'm wondering if you change. I mean, obviously, I'm one person. If I'm making a mountain out of a molehill here, then that's one thing. But what does eliminating the but not limited to line do to this code?
Future uses that we can't think of. I mean, sidewalk sales. I mean, I don't know what we could in the future allow outdoors that we don't think of now. Maybe someone does a food truck park and put spaces for food trucks in their center, and they want to change that to something else. It's hard for me to I'm trying to protect me from constantly having to change the code by incorporating, you know, possibilities.
I think my biggest problem is I'm inherently against something that just says but not limited to. If you're going to give examples and those examples make sense to me, right? Those are specific items that do change. That those are pretty big items, right? And so I don't know. I'm probably just making too big of a thing of this, but if no one else has anything against it, then I'm one vote, and I'm fine with it.
Well, we like hearing your perspective, so don't feel like you have to hold back, because sometimes that might inspire us to have more questions when you mention things, so don't feel
Right,
like
and
you hold back.
that's what I'm saying. Is it's not as something that I'm going to say, hey, no, we can't pass this. How dare you guys vote one way? But it just, yeah, it irks me to have something like that in code. And again, if it's not a big deal, it's not a big deal.
Okay, well, without
I
any
mean,
more.
I'm staff, so I'm going to tell you it's not a big deal, but that's really up to you to determine.
And so, of course, yeah, yeah. If everyone's on board and I'm just the only one, then yeah, I don't mind saying yeah to this. It's fine.
I guess if we have something
Maybe-
in the future, oh, go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't raise my hand this time. Just to maybe do a little different explanation of why the including but not limited to is good, is if I have a business and I, you know, make a change, let's say I expand my outdoor seating without going to the city first, and I'm expanding my outdoor seating in a way that violates the code, the city can still do a code enforcement action against me after I've spent all that money creating my new outdoor seating area or expanding my parking or whatever. So this is particularly valuable in areas that may not require a permit. And it tells an applicant, before I do this kind of a change, before I do any kind of change of outdoor use area, I better go talk, the code says I better go talk to the city first. And then the city can guide me as to what I can and can't do. Otherwise, it's kind of wide open and someone might end up investing a lot of money just to find out they did something incorrectly. So that's the point I would have for supporting the including but not limited to language.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
That's actually a really excellent way of explaining it. I hadn't really thought about it that way. I thought about it more as protecting the city from people like doing something against the code, but I've never thought about it as protecting the person from potentially wasting their money when they have to tear down their structure. So I really like that. That definitely makes me feel better about it.
Okay, good.
I'm on board with that one too. Thank you.
Okay, well, do we have any sort of recommendation we want to put together?
I think there's one in here.
Right at the top of page 5, if anyone wants to make the motion.
Thank you.
I was looking at the bottom.
I have a cleaner, simpler one at the top of page 5. I always try and put a simple motion so you don't have to read through the whole thing.
I'd be happy to make the motion.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to recommend the city council approve the proposed ordinance amending North Bend Municipal Code, chapter 18.14 site plans, chapter 18.16 off-street parking, and chapter 18.34 design standards.
I will
I'll
second that.
second that.
All right, we have a motion and we have not one, but 2 seconds, one from Olivia Moe and Scott Greenberg. All who say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I think our recommendation passes. And it sounds like that's the conclusion of our meeting tonight. unless we want to talk about something else. It's, you
Can
know,
we make
fun.
sure that Scott gets credit for coming in?
Yeah, we'll have it in the minutes that he came in before item number 5 and
Yes,
he's in attendance, absolutely.
great, thank you.
And he raised his
Yeah.
hand.
Thanks.
Do we need to make a motion to close the meeting?
You do not, just announce the time, adjourn the
All
meeting
right.
and announce the time.
I announce the time. It's 7:20 that we can continue on doing something else.
At the meeting.